Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Happy Hour Live here on Brew Sports. We hope your Thursday has been going well, but I'm sure you are equally excited that tomorrow is Friday. I know I'm excited as well, too. The work week is almost done, but the sports world, as many of you know, never stops. We welcome you inside the Happy Hour. I am Baxter Colburn, joined alongside by Teaka Griesbach. Teaka, happy Thursday. How are we doing today?
Happy Thursday. It's Thursday. I'm doing great.
It is, right? The week's almost over. You're finishing up senior year of college, as you mentioned yesterday, of course. So Thursday means only one more day of classes for you, correct? Or are you done?
I don't have class on Friday.
Friday class? You have the dream.
The past couple semesters, I've just been able to schedule classes leaving Friday open, which has been super lucky.
That is the
nice
goal, I feel like, as a college student, especially senior year, to be like, you know what? I don't have a Friday. You can take those long 3 or 4 day weekend.
Yeah.
So you're loving life right now. You're like, I'm done. I'm checked out. I'm hitting the town tonight. I'm doing whatever I want with my life.
I like to go home on the weekend, so it's really nice too.
That's right. You don't live terribly far away, so you can go home, see the fam, get the nice home cooked meal, do the laundry, all that fun
laundry
stuff.
for free. Yep.
Take advantage of it any way you can, basically.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited to have all of you join us on our program today. We're going to be joined later on in the show by one of our NHL correspondents, Justin Bradford, to help sort through all of the NHL trade deadline day excitement. Playoffs are just around the corner as well, too, for the NHL, so Justin will give us a lot of insight into that. So make sure you stay tuned for that later on in the program. But we want to first get off on the right foot, Teaka, of course, to talk about what's on tap. We've got some of the more funny or notable or just trending stories in the sports world right now. A lot of different ways we can go, but I feel like we should start off. I mean, it's Thursday. You're thinking about the weekend. You think about, if you live in a warm climate, going to the beach, going swimming. So most people, of course, do that on their own private island, right?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Everyone.
I have at least 3 private islands.
I have 4 or 5.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. Must be nice, apparently. I don't know what the Griesbach family does, but having 4 or 5 private islands is definitely a wonderful pleasure. So
my dreams.
The reason we bring that up, though, is because Adidas is running this new campaign, basically. Have you heard about what they're doing?
Yeah, a little bit. You'd think that it wouldn't be something so big, a private island. I mean, maybe like winning a trip somewhere or a mini vacation, but winning your own private island.
It seems outrageous, or it seems like a fraud. Be like, oh, win your own private island, like, do this or send us $1,000 and you could win. Like, no, it's the way it works is for every player at the NFL scouting combine, if they break Chris Johnson's combine record of a 4.24 40-yard dash, they will win an island. Adidas will give you a island. I don't know what to say to that.
Me either. When I saw it, I was like, that's insane. A whole island.
Have you ever run a 40-yard dash?
No.
As a dancer, you guys never had to run 40-yard dashes?
Not that I can think of.
No, I was trying to figure this out earlier, too, because Jamie and I were talking about this on the Morning Brew this morning, and I think the fastest I've ever run is a 4.8 40 back in my peak athletic days. Not that my body's changed too much, but obviously I haven't had to run a 40 on purpose unless I'm being chased for some reason, which also hasn't happened in a long time.
Right.
But not that I've ever gotten chased. That's irrelevant to the conversation. I never broke the law. It's true. Check me. Anyway, but it's interesting, and I've made the argument, I'm curious to get your thought about this. I made the argument that if I'm an NFL coach, why would I want to draft somebody that has their own island?
Oh,
I feel like you're already skewed as a player.
Yeah.
Because rookies so much come into the league wide-eyed, I'm excited to be a rookie, I'm playing with Tom Brady or whoever, whatever team drafts me, but to walk in day one full of confidence being like, oh guys, I got an island,
yeah, you might come across a little cocky.
Yeah. I feel like that. I feel like Adidas, I think because that's why they feel so confident in this record, no one's going to break his record, of course, so we can throw people an island if they somehow break it. Right. And if they actually do break it,
that's huge.
It is.
I know, it's a big bet to make. It's a big thing to throw out there. And, I mean, knowing that likelihood of it happening is slim, I mean.
What would you do for a private island?
Oh my goodness, a lot of things.
A lot of things, but obviously something that's going to stretch you, of course. You can't just do it. You have to you can't just be like, oh, I'm going to go do this, or you got to something that's going to physically put you through a crazy test, trying to run your heart out, for gosh sakes, in doing this. Would you run an Ironman or something, or I don't know. I feel for the common folk, and I made the argument too that I feel like people outside of the combine should be given the opportunity to do this.
Yeah.
You know, like anybody
sure.
under a certain age block or whatever should be able to try to go and compete
I would
at this
certainly
level.
try an Ironman, but I ran 4 miles the other day, and I'm not a runner, and I was so excited about that. Like, I died. I was dying at the end.
I wonder why you missed the other day, because you were literally dead on the street, be like, guys, I can't make it. I'm so tired.
I was so proud of myself for running 4 miles. Like, that's a lot
It's
for
a
me.
big deal.
So I would certainly go for it and try to run the Ironman, but I don't think I could do it.
I have no idea. I mean, I would certainly be interested to just see what my 40 time is anyway nowadays.
Yeah.
But I know I'm obviously nowhere near, because if I ran a 4:2:40, I'm sorry, I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be doing something else in my life.
I hope so.
I mean, but also as a kicker, it doesn't really matter how fast you are, because that's what my claim to fame was in high school and college, is I was a kicker. So people don't really care about fast kickers.
Yeah.
I think it would be great if a kicker broke. It'd be like, look at me, I'm fast. People would be like, what?
Kicker. Yeah.
Like, you're a kicker. Why do you run fast? You have to take 3 steps and kick a ball like 80 yards. Like, that's all it is. I don't know. So Adidas apparently trying to do this crazy big thing. Good for them. Good luck to all those trying to make it happen.
Just getting everyone talking. So.
And that's really all it comes down to, honestly.
Yeah.
Speaking of what people are talking about, some people like to go to their local taco stands on Tuesdays for Taco Tuesday. Are you a taco fan? What's your go-to taco?
Oh man, I really like fish tacos.
Fish tacos.
Yeah.
Now, is it like a
I'm not
salmon?
picky,
Is it a
though.
cod? Like, what kind of a fish?
Cod.
Is it cod? I think that's
Tilapia.
the normal one, right?
Yeah. But I don't know. I'm really not picky either, so I'll really try any taco. I don't really like
Interesting.
onions though, so if there's onions on the taco, I'll pick it off.
That makes sense.
But-
you can ask for that to not be on, though, I feel like, can't you?
Yeah.
Be like,
I
no onions,
suppose.
please. Like,
Yeah.
if they bring the onions after you said no, then you're just like, ooh,
Yeah, it's happened before. Yeah.
That's the worst. Now, I love tacos, but apparently one gentleman that regretted buying tacos is Sacramento Kings player Ty Lawson. He posted on social media, on Snapchat, I believe, asking people where a bomb taco spot was in the Sacramento area. I didn't think Sacramento had anything that was bomb, but apparently.
Yeah. Apparently
they do. He got these tacos, and the next day he was out with the stomach flu. Magically, he was listed questionable on the injury report, and people were like, "What was in those tacos, Ty? Like, why are you getting?"
Yeah, just trying to get some yummy tacos and get stomach food poisoning.
The stomach flu. Have you ever had the stomach flu? No.
I feel like I've probably had the flu before, but I've never had food poisoning.
Interesting.
I know a lot of people that have, and I always think about it every
Really?
time. I'm like, I can't believe I haven't had it yet, and I get nervous every time.
Kind of like chicken pox, isn't it? It's one of those. Well, in the sense of like you see other people that get it, and you're like, oh, I hope I never get it. But
Oh, yeah.
Chicken pox almost is one of the things they say you should get at an early age. Because
Yeah.
you get it later on in the age, you're just like.
I think I got chickenpox when I was like 2 years old.
I don't remember if I did too. People are like, did you have it? I'm like, I think so.
Yeah, my mom put the big oven mitts on me and everything.
That's an amazing. We need to find that picture for like a flashback Friday sort of
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
Be like little Teaka, just like oven
That'd
mitts
be
running
funny.
around.
I can remember a picture. I think it was like my first day of, maybe it was when I was 4, because I think I was going to school and I still had like some left. Like I was pretty much done, but I still had like scabs or something.
Yeah.
And so it's funny because every time I look at the picture, yeah, it must have been when I was like 4.
You're like, no, sorry, no, thank you.
Not fun. No.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, a couple of people commenting here on Facebook as well. Corey said he'd like his own private island. James says, I'm not sure how I would feel about winning an island. #taxes. Didn't think about that. It's kind of like on The Price is Right. When you win a new car, you still have to pay for some of that
Well,
stuff.
that was pretty good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. That's a very
James
good
seems
point.
like a smart guy thinking about the realistic thing. It's like, oh, you get an island. Oh, by the way, here's the upkeep. Here's this. Here's that. Here's that. Like, usually
See, is
that's
it
how.
even worth it?
I mean, that's the thing too. Like when you win a new car, you win you win something like that. I mean, if you win like a washer and dryer, you win whatever. Like okay, like there's no taxes on that usually.
Right.
But like a car, you have to somehow do the car payment. For an island, you clearly have to pay for the upkeep of an island. It's an island, for gosh sakes.
Yeah.
How do you can't just leave it there and be like, yeah, just kidding.
I'll take it when I want it and leave it. Yeah.
Unless you have that kind of money that you can do that, but most NFL rookies don't have that kind of money that they can just splash around for an island, basically. No pun intended. Last thing, a part of our What's on Tap segment is a rather curious story about former Chicago White Sox and baseball player as a whole, Jose Abreu. We've already talked about eating. We talked about eating tacos, but
not passport. Fake passport.
Fake passports. I don't understand. I don't understand this, Teaka. Do you? I don't know. Can you shed a little bit more light on this, honestly? Because I'm a little confused exactly on what was going on with this.
Yeah, so apparently, just on the flight, orders a beer, starts slowly eating his fake passport.
I don't have a I mean, I could eat my napkin, I guess, but I feel like my napkin
It's
is
just the craziest
harder.
thing I've ever heard.
So why did he have a fake passport, though? That's what I'm confused about in all this. Like, who just
Part
eats
of
their
a smuggling operation?
A smuggling operation? What?
Yeah. I don't know. It's crazy to me. I mean, when I was younger, I've tried, like, eating paper before, just a little. Doesn't everyone?
Absolutely. I'm sure. No, I have. I think everybody, and that's the thing too, when people are like, this tastes like
I've
cardboard.
tried it before. I feel like
have you
everyone
sucked on
has.
cardboard before? Like, I have. I'll admit that. I've bitten into
haven't.
cardboard at least once. Well, there we go. I don't think I've ever had willingly,
We're both
purposely had paper. We'll have to have a paper cardboard tasting day, basically. Gourmet cardboard, gourmet paper. The card stock is really what really gets the people going, basically. But so yeah, it was really strange. He had to eat a chunk of his fake passport while flying to the U.S. to cover up his illegal travel as part of a Cuban ball player smuggling operation. I feel like when you look at the baseball world and you look at everything that people do, so many folks focus on the steroids. People, I think, forget about how there are these other underlying issues, especially not to be that guy, but especially with the Hispanic players, because how many times do we hear the cartels? We hear these different things that are going on in the Central America, South America regions, and some of these guys had to get involved at a young age to help, get food for their family, and then they finally make it big and get out. But unfortunately, some of that life still follows you as well too, and that must have been the case here for Jorge as well too, or Jose rather, as he was trying to, just basically make it done so he can.
Right, I'm sure it was a difficult situation, but I mean, there's a difference between telling a little white lie and doing something like that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that one. It's a strange situation, honestly. I don't think you can really say that anybody can really justify the actions, of course, in that regards, but something to keep an eye on for sure as we hear more about this, as he testified in this trial back in down in Florida as well, too, where the trial was taking place. All right, what are the other things? Oops, sorry, go ahead.
Quote here, little by little I swallowed that first page of the passport. I could not arrive in the United States with a false passport. It's just
why
eat
not,
it.
Why not hide the passport?
Right.
Or leave it in the
Why do you have to
bathroom, or
eat it?
flush it. If you're on a plane, rip it up and flush it. How would you smuggle a passport?
That's so true. I mean, I've never thought about how I would smuggle a passport before, and I hope I never will.
Have you never had those thoughts where you're like...
But that's so true. We could have just ripped it up and...
Yeah.
Instead of eating
Everybody
it.
has a criminal side to them, Teaka. Regardless if you do it. Like, I'm just saying, like, I've never smuggled, I've never shot anybody, I've never done anything, but I find myself as a guilty person, and hopefully this doesn't incriminate me, but when I'm in, like, cities that have, like, tall buildings, I'm like, that would be a good place for a sniper to shoot somebody, or I'm like, that would be,
I have those thoughts as well.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I'm not totally
When you
insane.
put it that way.
Like, come on. Or it's like, I could smuggle this, or I could totally grab that, or if I just, over there, like, just out here, like, totally fine. See?
Okay, yeah, you make a good point.
Yeah, thank you.
I understand.
But now, just to put myself in Jose's shoes, though, if I was dealing with the passport, I probably would have ripped it all up in the bathroom and then tried to flush it maybe at different times, like not all at one time, kind of a thing where you flush it at different times. I don't even know why we're getting on this subject. I don't know how the airplane bathrooms work with the. I don't know if it gets stored.
I always wonder that when I go, though.
Like, where does it go? I don't know. It's kind of like Narnia. Whole nother topic.
That's a good point, though. Ripping it up and flushing it at different points.
I think that saves you more, honestly.
Yeah, and I do that with important documents too. I'll rip it up and throw them away at different times.
Exactly, or different garbages, so that way when it's collected, it all goes to different places. Basically, people do a lot of different things. But when you're worrying about something so big and so insane as your citizenship or the smuggling operation, you really don't have a lot of options, and sometimes people panic. Makes sense, I guess. I mean, but. If I would have smuggled, I would have done something different, obviously.
Yeah.
All right, so one of the things that we talked about yesterday briefly on the show, I believe one of our viewers, Aaron, commented asking if we had heard about the transgender wrestler that has been making headlines throughout the sports world as a whole, not just the wrestling world. If you haven't heard, 17-year-old Mac Beggs is a transgender wrestler. He just recently won the Texas State Girls Wrestling title. Yeah, you heard me correct. He won the girls' wrestling state title because Texas has a law that the gender on your birth certificate is the division or the sport that you have to compete in, basically. This has raised a lot of issues because he to an extent, he had a completely undefeated season. He won the state title basically by forfeit, because the video that came out of him in his state title fight showed his opponent basically they have to touch to start, basically touching, then backing off and almost walking off the mat, which disqualified her, thus making him, Mac, the winner.
Right.
And then he fell to the mat in excitement, just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I won. Like, I feel like I'd have been mad in that situation. Like, you didn't even fight me.
Right.
You barely touched me.
It doesn't really seem fair. And I just don't think it's okay that, I mean, a guy is now competing against girls. And I get the whole birth certificate thing, but I think it's weird. I mean, I don't know. I don't really think it's fair. So
is there a line that was crossed with this? Like, does Texas need to change their rules?
I mean, it's a hard situation, because, I mean, I think their rules are fair, but then again, like I said, it's not really fair that a guy is still competing with the girls. And
true,
having that testosterone now, I mean, I don't know. It's so hard. And then he's having a hard time with it, because he makes the point that he had been winning before he had the testosterone. And now that he's winning, as after transitioning from girl to a boy, people are making it a huge deal.
They are, and that's the thing I think that so many people are freaking out about. And he did an interview to kind of reiterate his thoughts about everything going on. He said, I heard the boos, but I heard more cheering. He told ESPN's Outside the Lines, he's like, honestly, I was like, you know what? Boo all you want, because you're just hating. You ain't going to get to me, and you nowhere, and I'm going to keep on doing what I've got to do. So,
I mean, as much as
there's a lot of perseverance.
Right, and as much as there's certain things I don't agree with, I'm all for someone taking like a hardship or something hard they're going through and turning it around and using it to inspire others that may be going through the same thing or are, that can relate to that. So, I mean, great. I support him, but also I'm like, it's not really fair in some ways.
No, I would agree with this, and I think Texas honestly has a big problem on their hand. I think they need to address the fact of, if you're going to have issues like this, and I know things like this don't come up all the time, and I think that's why Texas was just kind of like, well, just go with your birth certificate. They knew it was going to cause problems. But, I mean, up until just the last, I would say even 5 years, we haven't really had to deal too much with the transgender situations.
I feel like Caitlyn Jenner was a big, once that happened, 100%. I feel like that's when it became this more...
It did, yeah, you're absolutely right.
It started happening more, and you heard about it more.
You wonder, too, how many more times are we going to see... even on TV shows like The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, are we going to see a transgender bachelor or a bachelorette? Or are we going to see a transgender Miss America? Are we going to see a transgender, is things like that continually going to skew what people know as
I think
male
rules are
or female?
Yeah, I think rules are going to start to change, and you're going to start seeing those things eventually.
Yeah.
Another way to think about it, too, and I wonder what, everyone else is thinking, too, but what if this was your kid? That'd be
That's a very good point.
Difficult position to be in.
And my wife and I have had conversations about this as well too. We're saying, what if, our son is only almost 4 months, but what if our son comes to us one day and says, I like guys, or says, I want to be a woman, basically. And we've had the conversation a couple of times in general, just because, unfortunately, that's the world we live in nowadays.
Right.
You actually have to think more about this than just kind of laughing it off and saying, well, that's not going to be my kid. It's a very real possibility now with just the way society is nowadays, basically telling people you can identify as anything that you want to, basically.
Right.
And we've talked about it, and he said we would have a very hard time genuinely supporting it, but we would still always love our child no matter what, because it's your child. You just love your child.
Do anything for them. Yeah.
And as long as they aren't doing something that physically hurts themselves, you still have to love your child, I feel like, and support them. You might not agree exactly with what they're doing, but you still have to love your kid at the end of the day. And I think that's why the parents have stood behind. I think that's why there's been, so much backlash, though, from so many other people, because it's like, well, but you ask a good question, though, and I'm curious to hear what other people think about, what if this was your child? What if this was something that was happening to you and your family, or a niece, or a cousin, kind of anything that happens like that, basically.
And you're obviously going to, like you're saying, if it was your child, you'd be there for them through hard times and everything. And even in, an article where Mac Beggs was responding to all of this, he even says here, I don't think I've ever told anyone, but I would feel like I need to kill myself sometimes. But I was like, nah, I can't do that. So obviously, I mean, very difficult position to be in. And it shows here that he he just has to stay strong, he said. And
this is, and we talked about this yesterday too, and I kept coming back to the fact of like, I just don't know where to take this and where to go from this point, honestly, because you sound like a hypocrite if you say, well, I'm glad it's not my kid.
Right.
But then you also sound like a hypocrite because you don't support other people's decisions. Be like, well, you hate transgenders, you hate gays. Like, no, that's not what I'm saying.
Right.
It's a sticky situation that I think a lot of people just don't know how to navigate. And I think 2017 is just going to be a very telling year for a lot of people. Aaron mentioned on Facebook, he said, guy or a gal, if you're taking steroids, hormones, PEDs, you should not be allowed to compete in sports. Simple as that. And I agree with that. I mean, the people that we've seen in other professional sports, baseball players, football, basketball, those that get caught doing steroids or get caught in that trouble zone are then suspended or are then kicked out of the sport, or even gambling as well too. I mean, I know Pete Rose is a whole different subject, but you get caught gambling on games as well too. You shouldn't be allowed to participate. You're voiding your privilege, basically, to be a part of something.
Right. So it's hard to make this an exception.
Exactly.
I mean, even though it's changing and it's becoming more and more common. Yeah.
I agree with you. And speaking of things that are becoming more common as well, too, if those of you who haven't heard, Amar'e Stoudemire had to apologize for some gay teammate comments that he made recently as well. He released a statement, and you had a little bit more on this, Teaka, than I was able to find in the beginning. So what did all he have to say? In
an interview, I mean, there are multiple players interviewed, and most players, responding to that say, oh yeah, I would be fine with it. I wouldn't have an issue with a gay teammate. And he goes ahead and says, I'm going to drive, take a different route to the gym, make sure my change of clothes are around the corner when I shower across the street, and then goes on to say, when he was asked if he was joking, there's always truth within a joke, which I find, I mean, how many times do you joke around with someone and you're like, okay, well, part of that was serious, but I'm kidding because I don't want to hurt your feelings, kind of thing. I feel like that happens all the time. Someone says something to me, I'm like, okay, I know you're kind of serious about that.
Like when you make a joke, be like, and you ask somebody, be like, do you think I look pretty? Be like, absolutely. Or I would never say that you don't look pretty. It's like, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like that he admitted that. I mean, there's always truth within a joke, but then coming back, I think it was today, apologizing for it. But then again, this happened in 2012 during the off season.
It's true.
He tweeted a gay slur, and then he was fined $50,000. So you'd think you learn from such a big mistake, but here we are in 2017, and he does it again in a different way after being fined. I mean,
and that's the thing too. We just talked about the transgender thing. Now we're talking about the issue of gay slurs and racial slurs as a whole in the sports world, and we hear that tossed around all over the place. And being able to hear a player like Amar'e Stoudemire as well too. Some 6-time NBA All-Star. He averaged almost 19 points a game in the 14 seasons that he played as well too. I mean, you're talking about a potential Hall of Famer down the road. But then getting into problems when he starts talking about the gay slurs, talking about these issues that people are still talk about no matter what sport, what profession that you're involved in, basically, it really, in my opinion, it kind of pokes a hole in his reputation as a whole. Because it's
definitely.
Well, if you're not going to support this, or you're going to be so vocal about it, regardless of what your thoughts and feelings are. If people, Mama always said, if you had nothing good to say, don't say it at all, kind of a thing. I mean, you could be the biggest hater of African Americans, the biggest hater of gays or transgenders, but if you don't tell anybody about it and you don't make it known, people can't hate you for it. Your reputation, to an extent, can't be tarnished.
Certain things you share and certain things you shouldn't share.
Exactly.
And he apologized. He says, I want to apologize for my offensive comments against the LGBT community, but he's done this before. So
that's the thing,
you apologize, yet you do it again. So how many, people aren't going to take his apologies pretty soon, I feel like.
I agree. It's like, at what point, I mean, it's like that significant other that cheats on you, and it's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it. Like, okay, I forgive you. And then they do it again. It's like, I'm really sorry. Like, I didn't
kind of like
mean to do it.
Shame, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, or something
like that.
I think
I think something that there's that segues somewhere in that regards, honestly. Yeah, and I would agree with you in that regards of that. It's such a strange thing, and the fact that the media is even going hunting for questions like this and answers like this bothers me more.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because I've done a lot of interviews over the years, but I have never once asked somebody their thoughts and their feelings about homosexuals, never about transgenders, never about African Americans, Asians, whatever.
Yeah,
the fact that journalists are going out of their way, they're fishing for the hot take, they're fishing
for the drama.
And I know people love the whole hashtag yes drama, but at the same time,
I hate drama.
But some people, and that's the thing, some people love drama, some people say, no, I don't want the drama, don't want to deal with it. But I think this is more on the journalist than this is Amari, because, if somebody were to ask me my feelings about whatever, peaches, I would say, well, I hate peaches. I think they're the worst thing in the world. Yeah. I'm also allergic to peaches. So if I have peaches, I die. I already have a built-in hatred for it, or whatever thing. Or if people were like, do you hate Asians? And I'd be like, well, no, of course I don't hate Asians. But like, if you're never asked, if I were to ask you, if you prefer whatever, breakfast over lunch, and you say, I hate breakfast, be like, well, you just offended a whole community of people that hate breakfast, kind of a thing.
That's a really good point. I didn't think of it that way. Why'd they have to bring it up? Why'd they have to ask them?
You as a journalist should be a professional to not have to ask questions like that. If it's such a slow news day that you have to go to the...
It's like they were asking for
Yes, you were trying to fish for a story that had no business being out there, and then you put the player in a bad position, and then their reputation obviously continued to take a hit. Well, the journalist, I'm sure, is going to get off scot-free, be like, oh, look at the great story that I broke because I asked the hard-hitting questions. Be like, no, don't ask the gay questions, don't ask the transgender questions. Don't ask the racial issues. Like, you're interviewing somebody in the sports. This isn't politics. You're not talking to presidential candidates. You're not talking to sitting senators. Like, those people need to have opinions about that stuff. But professional athletes don't need to have that kind of opinion.
Yeah, it's a good point, and I think that they shouldn't have asked it. But I also think that, he did say it. It was his choice.
True.
It's his words. So I think it's just as much. I think it's on both sides.
I agree.
They didn't have to ask it, and he also could have responded in a more neutral way.
You're absolutely right about that. All right, moving on from somebody that actually drew a lot of attention last year with protesting was Colin Kaepernick. He, surprise, surprise, he's a free agent. He says, you know what, I'm going to stand for the national anthem again. Well, you know why he's standing, right, Teaka? He wants a job.
Yep.
He wants a job. If I knew that I was going to potentially get fired for something that I believed in or was doing that caused so much friction, of course I would say, well, absolutely, I'm never going to do that again.
Right.
And it's the same situation that we just talked about again, too. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. So who's to say whoever, San Diego, picks him up and is like, all right, Colin, you said you're not going to sit for the national anthem. First national anthem, he sits.
Right.
San Diego's like, well, son of a gun. Like, thanks again, Colin. Now the media hates us, they hate you, and you said you weren't going to do it just so you could get a job and get a nice $18 million or whatever, basically, he's going to end up getting paid. Yeah. Do you believe him? Do you think he's never going to protest the national anthem again? He says he thinks he's done enough to unite the community. He thinks he's done enough to bring people to raise awareness.
I think he'll do it again. I don't know. Maybe not.
Did you buy into the whole thing? Did you understand why he was doing it, or were you just like, do a different way? Like, think of, I thought it was ridiculous.
I understand, but I am completely like, you could have done it a different way. I thought it was ridiculous in that sense, and there's so many other ways to promote things or stand up for things.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
But I wouldn't be surprised if he does it again.
That's the thing. You talk about things like this. Now he's a free agent. Now he's talking about maybe going to the Jets, talking about going to the Broncos. There's all different places that Colin Kaepernick could probably go. Other notable free agents that are available, Eddie Lacy from the Green Bay Packers. Mm-hmm. The Green Bay Packers re-signed him. You've also got guys like Adrian Peterson and Jamal Charles that are hanging around as well, too, that could be signed for, a decent price for not as much as they would have been on the open market had they stayed healthy the last couple of years as well, too. But are we seeing a trend now, Teaka, with players that have had these issues that are getting released, that are then getting that second, that third, that fourth chance, that have had either off-field issues or on-field issues, that I feel like teams are so desperate sometimes to sign those players, be like, well, they were really good at one point, so they must be good again, but we'll forget about the domestic violence problems that you had off the field.
And I think when it happens with one person, other people see that, or other athletes are like, oh, well, I can get away with this, I can get away with that. I think that certainly is a thing, and it stinks.
I agree. I think it's something that you need to be very careful with, obviously. I think it's something that
Choose wisely.
As an organization, and that's why the Dallas Cowboys came under so much heat a couple of years ago when they signed Greg Hardy, who had the domestic abuse charges. People thought Ray Rice was going to get a second chance here after he punched his girlfriend out in the elevator, if you'll remember, a couple of years ago as well, too. He obviously didn't get another chance to play in the NFL, but so many guys get off on such fines or such little, like one-game suspensions. And then you see a guy like Tom Brady get suspended for 4 games because he supposedly deflated air out of footballs.
Right.
Like, it doesn't make sense when you weigh what people do when you're talking about it in that sense. I have a hard time really justifying the actions of people.
Oh, I agree.
It's
100%.
Like you supposedly cheated, so you're going to be out for 4 games because you took air out of the ball, but you knocked your girlfriend unconscious in an elevator and dragged her out of the elevator.
I think that's 10 times worse. Like,
I think you should go to jail.
But
it is,
yeah,
exactly, it is. But sometimes the way certain leagues see certain things, or it's like, oh, you got busted for substance abuse, you're out for a game. It's like,
come on.
What are you teaching these people?
Yeah.
What message then does that send to kids nowadays, too? Be like, well, if I want to go play in the NFL, I want to go play here because I know that I can, mess around and basically kill somebody and not ever get any consequences for it.
Yeah, I think they're sharing a bad message.
I agree.
They need to have more strict guidelines between what they do for certain things and weighing the options better.
You're absolutely right about that. All right, we're going to run to a break, but when we come back, Justin Bradford will be here, one of our NHL correspondents, to talk about the trade deadline day and the NHL playoffs right around the corner as well. Part 2 of Happy Hour coming up in just a minute, so stay tuned to the Brew Sports Facebook page. We'll be back with more right after this on Happy Hour. Stay with us. Welcome back to Happy Hour here on the Brew Sports Network. I am Baxter Colburn, joined alongside by Teaka Griesbach. Teaka, a good show thus far. We've been a lot of more hard-hitting, debating things going on here to show a little bit more, a little bit heavier of a show. I know the show is called Happy Hour, but there's just when you've got these issues going on with the transgender wrestler, the people tearing up and eating passports, and just Adidas trying to give people islands, it's going to be a weird show, I feel like, but we've managed to get through with it fairly unscathed, I think, and we're excited to bring in our next guest on the program today. Joining us to talk a little bit about the NHL trade deadline is Justin Bradford, and he's going to be helping us sort through everything. Justin, welcome to Happy Hour and welcome to Brew Sports, sir. How are we doing today?
Hey, doing just fine. Thanks for having me on. Ready to talk some hockey. It was an interesting day yesterday.
It absolutely was, Justin. Yeah, why don't you give us a breakdown here, basically? Who were some of the big winners of the NHL trade deadline as a whole? I know, of course, the playoffs right around the corner as well, too, but I know a lot of teams at least emerged fairly happy with some of the players they grabbed.
Sure, and honestly, I wouldn't say one of the winners would be from yesterday. It'd be from a couple. The day before would be the Kevin Shattenkirk trade going from St. Louis to Washington, and that right there was a big one because it shows the Washington Capitals are basically trying to go all in. They haven't been able to win a cup, even though they're the best team in the NHL last year overall in the regular season. This year, they're doing basically the same thing in the regular season, going for that President's Trophy. But the addition of Kevin Shattenkirk, who is an upcoming unrestricted free agent, that really is the addition that I think they hopefully need to make that deep run in the playoffs and get over that hump of finally winning, because their window is starting to close a little bit there in Washington as Alex Ovechkin continues to age, as well as some of the other players in the system aging as well. Their window, I would say, is not widening. It is definitely narrowing. And so the addition of Kevin Shattenkirk for just the playoff run is a big thing right there. What that also shows is aren't really looking for a deep run this year, even though Kevin Shattenkirk is an unrestricted UFA coming up, that it's not one of those things that is going to be good for them to do, to go in and to sign him. And so I'm thinking with the Blues, they're kind of giving up on the season, as well as the Dallas Stars. One of the big things I saw, too, is even though I'm in Nashville, so I might be considered a Nashville homer, but it was
I was going to ask you got the Predators banner behind you there, too. I mean, they're doing fairly well so far.
That was a gift.
Understandable.
A lot of the names on that thing, you don't see. I don't think any of them are on the team anymore. Is that old? But Predators was one of those trades that was smart for them to make with P.A. Parento coming in, because it was only a 6th-round draft pick. And what we see, especially this year with draft picks, is that it's not that best of a draft. Obviously, there's going to be some good players coming to the draft, as there always are, especially you might get that diamond in the rough in the middle rounds. But what we saw a lot this year was draft picks being traded, and there wasn't much of a value on draft picks as have brought in way more than a 6th-round draft pick, because that's almost like saying future considerations when you throw in a very, very late draft pick like that. And obviously he's a UFA coming up, but it's one of those depth players that could add a few goals here and there. And when you have a few goals here and there, that could turn out to be wins for the Nashville Predators. That's something they need to hopefully secure that 3rd place in the Central Division. And looking at the Eastern Conference again, a very weird thing and kind of funny thing happened with Mark Streit. With the trade, it was a 3-team trade with Tampa, Philly, and Pittsburgh, wherein he was basically on Tampa for all of maybe 30 minutes before they dealt him, and ended up being a tricky trade there to get 3 teams paying for Mark Streit's salary. So it's a very interesting trade when it comes to that, but there weren't any blockbuster trades this year. It was interesting more just with the draft picks and the value that general managers had on the draft picks in this upcoming year. Obviously, a lot of the expansion draft is going to have a lot to deal with everything and how GMs act when it comes to the offseason, when it comes to the season and everything like that too. Yeah.
Talking about players, who would you say is most improved?
Most improved? Are you talking about through this season, or just in terms of overall since I started?
Overall,
I mean, it's tough to say most improved. The really players that have impressed the most, obviously, is a player like Mitchell Marner out of Toronto. And I would say that just because he's kind of shadowed by Austin Matthews a little bit, being in Toronto, and Austin Matthews being the second coming next to Connor McDavid. And so when you have a guy like Mitch Marner, who is extremely small, especially given for hockey, but what he's accomplished in junior hockey is very, very impressive. So Mitch Marner is one of those guys that for Toronto, he's very important, and they have a lot of good young talent there. So Mitch Marner is the one I think, especially being his rookie year too, he's really impressed and been an improved player because they didn't expect that out of him right off the bat because of his size. Another one that I'd throw out there too would be Philip Forsberg has just impressed so much from his first year in the NHL, and I say that being in Nashville, so I get to watch him play a lot too. But it's fun to see him throughout this season. He had a very, very slow start, but I think most people that watch him or the Predators knew that it'd be coming. And then last week he had 2 hat tricks in a row. And that's
can't argue with that. Yeah, that's a pretty good performance right there, honestly.
Earned him the 2nd star of the month in the NHL and 1st star of the week in the NHL. So very impressive. When he gets hot, the whole team seems to get hot, and the Predators have been hot lately.
Can we talk about Connor McDavid for a quick second? Because I know a lot of people that I know are just tired of Connor McDavid. They're like, he's not Wayne Gretzky, get over it. But so many people seem to hate Connor McDavid, but it's hard to hate a player that continues to just take the NHL by storm, though.
You know, another player that gets a lot of hate is Sidney Crosby.
True.
There's a reason for that hate. It's because they're good. And so now Crosby, what comes along with Crosby is sometimes the way he acts after penalty call or things like that. He gets to be called whiny, but he's a good player. He's won a couple cups, and it's proven that he is a fantastic player. He's one of the best in the world. Connor McDavid, it's the same thing. He is a leader on that team already, being thrust into a leadership position. And then now he's dynamic. I had the opportunity to see him play junior hockey in Erie, and he was the kind of player that could change the game. He didn't belong a junior even at 17 years old. He was
a man among boys, basically.
A man among boys, and especially, for instance, to give you an idea of it, it was on a 5-on-3 shorthanded. McDavid was out there. There's only 3 players for his team. He was able to split the defense and score shorthanded 5-on-3. Most players don't score shorthanded 5-on-3 like that. So he was able to split the defense. That's how good he is. He's dynamic. He's fun to watch. People will buy tickets to watch him play. And it frustrates a lot of other fan bases like that too, that they don't have a talent like that they didn't suck bad enough to get a player like that. So it frustrates a lot of people too that Edmonton got him because they've had so many high draft picks in the past decade. So I understand the frustration with him, but he's changing that franchise just like Austin Matthews is changing Toronto, and just like Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane changed Chicago, and Sidney Crosby changed Pittsburgh. It's what happens. It pays to stink sometimes, and when you have a draft order like that.
You're absolutely right about that, and part of my ignorance as well too. But why are the Colorado Avalanche so bad? Like, I don't maybe just you gotta help a non-hockey super fan out basically. But good Lord, they're terrible.
If I could insert a GIF of a dumpster fire, that would be probably the best thing to describe the Avalanche right now. And there's a plethora of reasons why. And it goes back a few years ago to a very strong draft when the Nashville Predators picked Seth Jones, the Colorado Avalanche picked Nathan MacKinnon. It was a draft where everyone that follows the sport pretty much knows that they should have drafted a defenseman. You see it in every sport. Every team usually has a need, and it's a glaring need that this team needs. And when the general manager doesn't draft that need, it makes you kind of scratch your head a little bit. And that's exactly what happened with Colorado, that they picked a dynamic player, a great player, Nathan MacKinnon, but they needed defense. And we see right now that they do not have defense. They have some great depth up front with Gabriel Landeskog, Matt Duchene, Nathan MacKinnon. They have some great players up there, but if they're not stopping shots on goal, not stopping goals like that, it's not going to be successful. And that's what we're seeing right now, is that they didn't draft what they needed. They didn't make the right moves to build up their defensive core. And then with this trade deadline, obviously Joe Sakic has held on to the players that were on the market because people were giving him the price he wanted. So it's probably going to happen at the draft. We shall see if people will be willing to part ways with some pretty high-end prospects and draft picks and such to get a player like Matt Duchene or Gabriel Landeskog. But it's one of those things that he probably should have sold a little bit more at the trade deadline just to stock up, because a team like that, who is absolutely terrible right now, you need to stock up as much as you can, because as we all know in any sport, a draft is a lottery. You don't know what you're getting if you want to pan out. So stock up your draft picks, whether it's this season or even next season, and plan for the future, because that's what they need to do, because they suck.
Okay, what about favorites for the Stanley Cup?
Favorites for the Stanley Cup, it's one of those things that everybody's going to say, but Washington Capitals got to be favorites just because they have it together. They have the pieces that you need. And as I said earlier with Kevin Shattenkirk, they have a great defenseman as well, adding to what they already have, which is a pretty good core in Washington. They also have a great goaltender in Braden Holtby, with a great goaltending coach in Mitch Korn, who came from Nashville previously. So we've seen what he's able to do with goaltenders. Barry Trotz's system has worked well. He's made Alex Ovechkin be able to play responsibly. And Alex Ovechkin is still dangerous in that faceoff circle, because that's where he tends to score every single one of his goals. And I don't know why teams don't guard him when he's in the faceoff circle. But
you guard the best player on the ice on any sport. You guard the best player, usually.
You think put a guy on him, even if you had to do like the quarterback shadow on him, we'll do it. So I'd say they're
in his way.
Yeah, and then you have Pittsburgh Penguins going for the repeat. They've stocked up a little bit as well. They still have plenty of firepower on that team. The Minnesota Wild, I'd say, might be the dark horse pick for it, even though they are leading the Central Division right now. It's tough for them because they don't have as much experience. They do have some of the right team members on there, and then when they added Stahl in the offseason, that helps as well. But it's still questionable as to what they can handle, whereas you have other teams full of lots of veteran leadership like Pittsburgh and Washington. The East is obviously better this year, so it's going to be basically theirs to lose out of the East compared to the West this season. So, but those would be my three picks right there.
All right, Justin. Well, we appreciate your insight today, sir. Before we let you run, where can people find you on social media to keep track of all your excellent hockey coverage?
Absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter at Justin B. Bradford. That's everywhere online. I've completely personally branded myself. It makes it a lot easier. Justin B. Bradford.
Justin B. Bradford. Justin Bradford, one of our NHL correspondents here on Brew Sports. Always a pleasure, sir. We'll talk to you again soon, all right?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. There goes Justin Bradford. We will talk with him again soon as the playoffs and all the other excitement surrounding the NHL continues to fire up. Some very good insight from Justin. Very knowledgeable as well, of course, about the game of hockey. As we get ready to wrap up the show here in just a moment, Teaka, a couple of things I want to talk about, of course. It's always funny to look at how people are viewed and how people are projected. You know who Rob Gronkowski is, the tight end for the New England Patriots. I don't know if you've heard the name in your circles or not. Too kind of a party boy, kind of a crazy thing. Well, apparently people are saying that Rob Gronkowski has a future in Hollywood because he's already just such a character as a whole too. But we've seen the athletes make the jump from their professional athlete dumb basically to being movie stars sometimes, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But Do you ever feel like professional athletes as a whole just feel like they're just so entitled that they can do anything that they want to, basically never have to suffer any consequences? Like, I'm going to run for political office. I'm going to go be an actor.
100%.
I'm going to go do this.
I mean, good for them because it gives them,
I suppose, but I feel like that's not fair for the rest of us.
Oh, I agree. I know. It kind of gives them like a step up, and, everyone knows who they are because they're a professional athlete. So it automatically, gives them that step up and gets their foot in the door for so many other opportunities. And then there's us.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, you think about it, though. I mean, how many times do you see, especially in the broadcasting industry, people fighting to get that dream job, and then all of a sudden somebody, a former whatever person retires, let's say a baseball player retires, and they take the job of somebody that's been working 20 years to get a job broadcasting in baseball at the major league level. It's like, well, that's not really fair. I feel like they have to go through some sort of a phasing process before they just get handed the keys to the kingdom, basically.
Right, because you have other people that are working so hard to get to that point, and just because people know their name, they get it. They get their foot in the door.
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right about that. Does anything really just kind of grind your gears, Teaka, when you hear something that happens in the sports world? You're just like, are you kidding me? Like, again? Like, why? Why? Because, I mean, you're obviously a very, very happy, very perky person, but I feel like there's got to be those little things you're just like, are you kidding? Like, knock it off. Like, get a job, do this. Like, shape up.
There are definitely those times. I mean, nothing specifically that I can think of right now, but, someone will say something or something will come up and I'll feel exactly that way. And
but what, though? Like, what frustrates you? What fires you up? You don't know? You don't
can't think of something right now.
Nothing that fires you up. Like if I don't even know if a good example, honestly, because I don't know what fires you up, so I can't give you an example to be like, does that fire you up? How about that? I don't even know, honestly. But I'm always curious because some people think that it's funny that these players or these leagues get away with so many crazy things, and people always have an opinion about it. Be like, oh, that's just ridiculous. That's just blown out of proportion. But I don't know. I just was curious because I'm just wondering if I can dive into the world of Teaka a little bit more here and figure out basically. But
I can't think of a good example right now.
Fair enough. Corey also says on Facebook, he says, "Don't hate the player, hate the game." Apparently, I mean, take that for what it's worth, I guess. Aaron says he would hire Gronk to work for him. Kurt says Gronk could run the red carpet interviews, apparently, since I am a little bit busier these days, which is true. I've done a couple red carpets in my day, so I guess my day job is a little bit more consuming than it used to be. But I mean, Gronk only working a couple of days out of the year, I guess, makes total sense. So either way, I feel like Gronk and I could co-host. Let's not make this a bigger thing than it needs to be. I feel like I could get out to the red carpet when I need to. We need to get Teaka on the red carpet too. She's got the perfect face for it. I feel like we gotta get you out there basically. But all right, Teaka, as we close out the show today, any final thoughts or anything that we talked about early in the show that you just kind of want to put a nice little bow on so we can move off for the weekend, basically?
I think we said it all as we were talking about everything, but. Yeah, there's nothing I can think of right now no final thoughts.
Fair enough. Your weekend starts now, actually. You won't be here tomorrow.
I won't.
Which is sad.
I know. I'm very sad. I wish I could be here.
I know, yeah. Teaka will not be here tomorrow. Likely Ryan Thies will be here. One of the co-hosts of College Road Trip will be here to hopefully even do a sliver of justice to your position as the co-host here on Happy Hour. So you can look forward to having us back here from 4 to 5 p.m. Central Time tomorrow. A full slate of content for you tomorrow of programming on Brew Sports. We've got a special edition of our NFL show, Pick Six, with Tanner Burke and Jay Ramadan. That's going to be on from, I believe, 1 to 2 p.m. Central Time, among all the other daily content that we've got. And then we'll be closing our day from 5 to 6 p.m. Central Time with the debut of our NBA show, Double Dribble, with Mitch Vomhoff and Jimmy Carlton. It's going to be some great stuff. A great way to finish your week with a bang, and everybody can go home and breathe for 2 days and then do it all again on Monday, basically. But so, Teaka, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I hope you enjoy the time with your family if you decide to go home. And I look forward to having you back here again on Monday as well, too.
I can't wait.
Absolutely. She is Teaka Griesbach. I'm Baxter Colburn. Special thanks to Justin Bradford as well for joining us as our NHL correspondent. It's been Happy Hour. We'll see you guys again right back here again tomorrow, 4 p.m. Central Time, live on Brew Sports. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.